Congratulations, you're the top of the top. You should be very, very proud of yourselves. I am very proud of you. And coaching obviously is one of those pieces that we offer up as a massive value. We can talk numbers all day long. I think at this point, you guys know all about the numbers and those people who engage, what happens to their businesses as compared to the others. So I'm going to skip that if that's okay with you. I think one of the focuses that we really are, and I heard a great line that probably gave it much more justice than I could ever give, and that is that we recognize that you all are in business for yourselves, but you're not in business by yourself. And what I mean by that is we look at as distinctive properties, as prime properties. We look at ourselves as your partner, and we're there to help you along, whether that be through skill building, which we can all agree, I don't care what level. As a matter of fact, this group on the phone here, here's the funny thing, right? Like if I were to ask the average person, if I took the 3 different groups of agents within our coaching program, within our organization, and said, which group do you believe would find the greatest value in skill building? All right, I think most people would answer the question, well, it's the launch, of course. They're brand new agents and they don't know what they're doing. I totally disagree. I actually think it's the elite group. Same thing if I asked, which of the groups do you think would put the most value on coaching? Same thing. I would think that it would be the launch. Not so. It really is the elite group. And the reason for it is because you all do operate at such a high level and you recognize the impact very small changes have. It's sort of like an elite athlete, right? The Eagles didn't go out there and go, hey, listen, I don't need a defensive or offensive coordinator. I don't need a head coach. I don't need somebody that calls plays. Like, I got this because we're professional athletes. They rely heavily on skill building. They rely heavily on coaching, and they went out and did a great job. So anyway, I love the elite group. Don't tell everybody else. I love the elite group because I feel like I'm talking to people who are ready to do what's necessary to achieve at a very high level. Again, our goal is to be your partner. So to that end, let's kind of get through the minutia of this and get into it. And Derek, I'm going to need your guidance here just to make sure I'm not saying you're doing anything stupid, which trick question, I know, but so what I have for our elite group is that we are having 2 one-on-one coaching calls with your managing director, your local managing director. Yes? Can I get a thumbs up because we can't hear you? Okay, thank you. I want to touch on this for just a second. As you guys know, and those of you that have been with us for long enough know that each session we change it slightly, right? And what we're trying to do is always get a little bit better. This time, what we've done is you said, hey, listen, rather than Todd being so involved on the one-on-one side, we're going to do it a little differently, right? We're going to have our local managing directors much more engaged in coaching on a localized level. And I'm going to be doing the mastermind. So we're going to have 2 masterminds instead of 1 mastermind. And then when I'm in town, I'm going to be much more engaged in working with you all, coaching as well. So while you're getting less of me, which I think is probably a bonus, if you look at the data, right? The data says that people that worked with me had a 51% increase in gross commission income year over year. The people that worked with the managing directors had it was between 300% and 500%. That's great. Hi, Shannon. 300% and 500% increase in their GCI. So the data would point to working with the managing directors are better. We have spent the last several months working hand in hand. Obviously, Keith is already a certified Tom Ferry coach. Robert, you can probably speak to the amount of training and time that gets spent in that. We've gone through the same thing in training the local managing directors to ensure, and sales managers to ensure that they are properly prepared to coach with you, okay? That being said, it's 6 months, it's session 4. Go with it, love on it, get as much as you can out of it, and then give us feedback so that we can get better for session 5. Cool? Jen, I'm not going to go until you get, thank you.
Sorry about that.
All right. All right, so the 2 mastermind calls, we're going to do them like this. Occasionally, we're going to do them as an entire group, meaning we'll have all of the people engaged in coaching, not just the elites. Most of the time, I think we'll be doing just elites because they're very specialized issues. But here's the challenge that I want to make sure that we all get after in session 4. I need more interaction from you all. Like, I need you telling me what are some of the struggles that you're going through, and I want to do super high level stuff, right? You all are operating small businesses. That's what you're doing right now, right? So I want you telling me, hey, this is what I'm challenged with. This is what I'm struggling with, so that we can get after it. Because here's the thing I know. If Janine says, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, there's 5 other people that are struggling with the same thing, right? If Jen says, you know, this is the one thing I need help with, there's a bunch of you that are having the same issue, and I want to approach it that way. So I'm going to be looking for you to send me an email, send me a text message, let Derek know, let us know what it is specifically that you're looking for. This morning, I shot a Facebook Live, I put it on Inside Track, and I said, hey, give me your ideas. And I got, I don't know, 15 or so pieces of feedback there. That was awesome, right? Cool?
Yeah, but if Janine's struggling with it, don't assume everybody else is struggling with it. That's the only thing I'd want to say. Janine's struggles are her own.
That's not very nice.
Look at this. She's back in the office.
I think that's pretty stellar, although I'm pretty sure her doctor would be pissed off right now. So, yep. Is this being recorded? Yep. Just check in.
We're sending it to her doctor.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't miss you, Todd. I couldn't miss it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, darling. All right, so questions. What do we got? Give me some questions about coaching. What do you got?
Are you asking in relation to the to your question this morning? I watched your video. You know, when we get that video, it looks like you're driving on the wrong side of the road, or you're.
I know that.
It is. I keep thinking you're in Europe. Listings are low, and your question, I'm not. It's not that I'm losing the listings; it's that I'm not getting the calls.
Okay.
And that's unusual for me this far in the.
Okay. Okay. Beautiful. All right. So before we get to the questions, are there any questions from the structure of how we do this? Well, obviously, we're doing it via Zoom. For those of you that haven't done that before, you can miss 2 calls, right? We ask for 48 hours notice. If you give 48 hours notice, we'll do everything we can to reschedule the call, so no issues there. Here's the thing, and we don't really have to deal with this much with this group, but I'm just got to put it out there anyway. Everybody's time, yours, your manager, like everybody's time deserves to be respected. You know, again, we're your partner. We're going to respect yours. And vice versa. So, hey Keith, what's up, buddy? So 2 times, right? 2 times. We're just going to ask you to put it off until the next session. This is no, you know, like nobody's slapping the hands. This is not a mommy-daddy relationship. This is your partner saying, hey, listen, we're here to support you. Okay, is that cool? All right. So. I do want to give some perspective, and I'm probably giving you this perspective more because I think that you all are very high level performers, right? And so there are a lot of things you all are doing really, really well. And the fact that you're here on the call, the fact that you're participating with coaching, tells us that you find value in it. And it always shocks me if I were to take percentage-wise and I were to take this elite group and I would say, all right, these are the people that get invited to coaching. What percentage of the elite group say I'm in for coaching, and which percentage of the core group and the launch group like opt in or out? It is amazing to me how many people in the other groups pass on coaching. Listen, it's everybody's journey, right? It's your own business, and I totally get it. But the folks in this group, the ones that are really achieving at a super high level, are engaging in whether it be some kind of a class or in leads generation or coaching. And so I tell you this almost more so that if you have an interaction with somebody who said no to coaching and they're struggling with their business, that you could maybe be a mouthpiece. All right. So indulge me for just a second, and then we'll get after it. Obviously, the time and energy that goes into putting together this coaching program, you probably don't realize, but it's pretty massive. I mean, what Derek has had to take on from a scheduling standpoint and trying to figure out who qualifies for what, and then making sure that each of the coaches are not only trained and prepared to do the coaching, but the materials are available. And then never mind the time that it takes to do all of the coaching, because again, we've got over 250 agents, so there's a lot of people that are being coached. You kind of add all these things. And so I crunched some numbers. So kind of figured so if you were to go to Tom Ferry, right, and do 4 calls per month, it's $1,400 a month, right? I kind of figured since you're having 2 one-on-one calls with your managing director, and then the others are group calls with me, I devalued the group calls, right? So I kind of figured, I don't know, maybe it's $900, right? But if you do the $900, it's $200,000 a month of coaching that we're putting out there to say, hey, y'all can have it, and we're not charging a dime, right? It's $1 million worth of coaching during the 6-month period. It's super massive commitment, right? It's super massive commitment. All right, so we talked a little bit. So when we come to the masterminds, this piece is going to be much more all of us engaging and answering questions and masterminding. So these are the pieces that I got from the Facebook Live. And so what I'd like to do now is we'll pick one, right? We'll start to talk a little bit about it, but I want y'all to engage in this. So those of you that have the mastered the art of helping a seller who's in a hot seller's market price their property so that they're not being unreasonable, all right, and unrealistic. I want you to share. Is that fair? So this is where we get to all unmute ourselves and sort of have a free-for-all. So why don't we start with this first one? I think that specifically it was saying that they were pricing themselves 5 or 10% above the market because they felt like the market was so hot that they could, I don't know, maybe we'll get lucky, right? It's that whole, I'm going to find a pigeon someplace that's going to overpay for my property. So who's dealt with this and has had some success in helping people get realistic with their pricing?
I've dealt with it. So I think
successfully?
Well, I think in some cases it is, but sometimes you're dealing with folks who just are not realistic about it. So I try to help them understand, if they were the ones buying their house or any property, that are you going to look at a house seriously when or in your subjective opinion, it's overpriced by 10, 15%. Is it even a consideration for you to have that on your radar, or will you pass it up because you don't expect the seller is going to be realistic with their pricing?
Okay. Who else has had experience dealing with sellers being unrealistic with their pricing strategies?
I've never had that problem before. Generally, I'm in it for a long run. That's just where I came from, the distressed properties. And I'm less and less apt to take listings, regardless, because of that theory, because it just costs me money and I get frustrated. So my approach is going to be say, that's fine, we'll play your way, but if we get no action in 30 days, will you agree to a preset price reduction? And And if that doesn't work, Todd, I think that I'll just pass.
Yeah, no, I love that strategy. Okay, who else?
So Todd, this is Rhonda.
Hi, Rhonda.
I just took a listing last Wednesday and they priced it above where I told them it should be. And we had this deal that within a couple of weeks, if they didn't price it right, if we weren't getting any showings, then we would reduce the price. We had 15 showings in 2 days and 3 offers all over asking. So it made me look like I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get reasonable in this market with the way things are going.
Well, and I'm super glad that you said that because, one strategy out there is a lack of reasonableness. I think we would all agree on both sides, right there. And we've seen this. I don't care if you're in a traditional market or a resort market. There were many a times where we list a property in Sun Valley and you're like, there's no way. And then, of course the market caught up with it. So I'm glad you brought that up. One strategy might be not to, right? Maybe it's not up to you to determine whether or not it's reasonable or realistic.
Okay.
Maybe the answer really does lie in us being a great consultant to our clients, providing them with as much information as possible and really helping them to position, it's their asset, right? I mean, the bottom line is you and I want to get the most for their property as possible because it's good for them and it's also good for you, right?
Right.
So one strategy may be that you just simply paint yourself as, hey, listen, I'm going to provide you with all of the data. I'm going to give you so much information that you can absolutely make an informed decision. We can talk about where you're going to position the property to begin with, and then we can talk about strategies moving forward if we don't have, what we would define as a lot of offers or a lot of showings, within a specific period of time or offers. Obviously, the average days in the market are different between, Vail and Montrose, for example. So.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything in there? By the way, I love the hey, it's a preset price reduction. So you're saying, hey, listen, I'll agree with your pricing strategy at 650,000. That's really more geared towards somebody who is going to come in and tell the seller where it should be, right? And some of you are really good at that. I just was never really that good at it. So I always did it differently.
I do too, Todd. I want to come on to that statement a little bit, stating that I think that if we're going to have either one of those conversations, we can help ourselves by saying, what's your goal, Mr. Seller? What can I do? And, we'll start where you want to start, but what do you want to do with the money afterwards? And focus on trying to achieve their goals rather than adjust their price.
Well, yeah, so it kind of goes back to almost a coaching relationship, right? I mean, those of you that coach and have experience coaching one-on-one, what you've never heard is your coach beating on you, right? What you've heard is, okay, so Jen, what do you want to do? Like, what's your goal? It's this. Okay, then what does that mean to your life? Like, okay, I want to sell my house and I want to sell it for $675,000. Wow, that's fantastic. All right, so $675,000. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to move to Miami. Oh, fantastic. So when would you like to be there, right? Like really painting the picture of when somebody wants to be there, when they want to accomplish their goals, and really understanding, as you said, Jim, what it is that they're trying to accomplish, so that you can then tie it back, right? Okay, so you want to be in Miami within the next 90 days. So Jen, where do you want to position the property? I've given you all the comps. We probably have even gone out and looked at a couple of them, right? So you really have a great understanding, wink, wink. And so here we are. You want to position your property for $700,000. Okay. All right. Great. So you want to be there in 90 days. It's going to take us about 37 days from offer to close. So working backwards, right? What is that? Mathematicians? That's 53 days, right? So 53 days is what we really have to get your property on the market, marketed, all of those things. We got to work really fast. So what price do you think is going to give us the best chance of selling your house really in the next 53 days? Right? Okay, so you're stuck with 7. Okay, 700,000, got it. That's great because Jen's kind of a pain. But so here it is. So 700. So Jen, at what point do you want me to call you to revisit the pricing strategy in the case of it not working? Like what is it? How are we going to track and measure this so that we can identify when we want to make an adjustment to our strategy? Does that make sense? So it's, again, you guys, it's not my asset. Like I'm just a big believer that it help them. That's your job, is just to sort of help them through it. But Jen, like if you have a client and you're asking those questions, what would you say? You got 53 days.
Yeah, I mean, I give them a couple options, just like when you're dealing with kids. Say, would you like me to call you in 2 weeks or a month?
Right. So if I call you in a month, then that's going to leave us with 23 days remaining if we make a price reduction then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Why don't you call me in 2 weeks instead?
Right. Okay. Awesome. Any more?
No.
All good? All right. What about multiple offers? Who's dealing with multiple offers right now for buyers? Those representing buyers. Who's dealing with multiple offers?
I had one.
Yeah.
I had one.
Okay. So those of you that are dealing in multiple offers, like, what's your strategy? What's your strategy? Number one, how are you preparing the expectations of your buyer so that they're properly prepared to do what's necessary to get the property if it's the property that they want? And then number two, what's the actual strategy in dealing with multiple offers? Who wants to share how you're managing expectations?
I talk to them about what the market's doing and the fact that inventory is low. There are a bunch of people sitting around waiting for that next offer or that next property, and that it's been very competitive, and that the notion that, oh, nobody pays full price, in what the market's doing, that's not the case. And I'm here to give you guidance as to how they're priced in the market. Don't just assume upfront that they're 5 to 10% over and that you should be able to get the property for that amount. I talk to them about stats. Listings are selling 98% of list value, and beyond that, if it's a property that checks a lot of your boxes, there's a good chance that there are several other buyers out there as well who are going to be interested in this property.
Okay. Anybody else?
So in the property I had, I felt that it was slightly overpriced for the location, but I knew that it would go quickly. It was only on the market for a couple of days. He probably had 8 showings. My buyer wanted to come in low because she heard that's what you're supposed to do. We had her pre-approved, ready to just rock and roll and go, so that when she found something, but they weren't willing to pay over, which I knew it would go for over, sell for over, or at least the other offer would be over. And in this case, they weren't willing to do that because they were listening to somebody saying nobody pays full price. But we had been looking on the market and there was nothing like this. But that still, even 500, 1,000, a couple thousand scared them. So I just made sure they were aware that it's highly likely they will lose it. If we're getting financing, we're pre-approved, we're okay there. Make it as clean as possible, but that I felt it was going to go over. And so they wrote a full price offer and the other person wrote it for over. But I explained to them that, they know the market. We've been looking at property and they wanted to come in something like $25,000 low, which wasn't realistic, one, in this market or this neighborhood, and certainly this house because our inventory is low. So we discussed their willingness to lose it, and and keep going. And they said they were fine with it, of course, until they lost it, and then they
Well, then, yeah.
that it was a different story.
Janine,
Pardon?
whose fault was it?
Whose fault was what?
Whose fault was it that they lost the house?
It was theirs. They were not. I negotiated the hell out of that deal.
Is that what they thought? Is that what
Yes,
you thought?
they were. No, they were willing to walk away, and that was.
No,
the
that's good. That's fantastic. All right. Who else? Who else has been dealing with multiple offer deals?
Hey, Todd, Dave Maloney.
There you go.
Dave?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I wasn't sure if you could hear me. I've been having trouble with this Zoom thing, so I'm just on my phone. But so I'm not in a multiple offer situation right at the moment, but I did have a buyer here this last week that had lost out on another deal previously because they, we knew it was a multiple offer situation, and they, they made actually a pretty darn good, pretty strong offer, but the other people paid full price cash and they lost it, and they probably would have lost it anyway because they were financing. But when this next one rolled around, they were in a similar situation, and in the meantime, they had actually lost another one because they were not willing to make an offer sight unseen on this resort condo, and I was like, hey, we're not going to be able to get in there till Tuesday. It was Friday. There's already one offer on the table. There's going to be another one over the weekend. So it's sometimes, I think, unfortunately, the buyers have to learn the hard way that, when you're in this kind of a market, you have to be willing to move. But I kind of have a little different tact that I take with people and myself, because I've bought and sold a fair amount of properties myself over the years. And so that what I tell people, and I find it pretty effective, is I say, so here's what you got to do. You got to ask yourself, at what price am I going to kick myself in the rear end if I find out somebody else bought this property?
Good.
I think it's a really great mental exercise for people, because, if it's priced at 300 and you just can't convince yourself to pay 300, but if you find out somebody else paid 295 and they got it and you would have paid 295, then, you can sleep at night, if you offered 295. And I find that that's a great exercise to run people through. And if they really, really want it, then they'll make the strongest offer possible, and they, hopefully won't regret it.
Yeah. I just in listening to so many of you, and this is kind of, it's sort of a new phenomenon, right? I mean, it's certainly happening more and more and more. I think there seems like there are two different pieces to the puzzle. One is being ahead of the curve, like get in front of the train and make sure that you establish expectations early on, and, paint the picture, make sure that everybody's ready for what might happen. And that's part of our job, right? Just sort of getting people prepared. And then obviously the second part is how we handle it. And there's a lot of you on this call that are way better at having the right language in your multiple offer deals than I would ever pretend to have. I think from an expectation standpoint, if you all can help people understand what's going on in the market and understand that multiple offers are a more regular occurrence.
Hey,
and then
Todd,
just because,
I have a question. A lot of our Seattle realtor friends are doing escalation clauses.
Yeah.
And I presented one to a client. He about thought I was crazy. Is anyone else having success with using an escalation clause?
Jimmy, speak to us, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just know one of my Olin here. He was working one that we did it. It's in a competitive market right now that escalation clauses are definitely real and an option. I mean, it's a strategy to use. So but again, I think it goes back to what you were kind of alluding to, Todd, and that's just being real to your clients and just saying, hey, this is the market that we're in. If you can be real and talk to your clients about what the market is doing, how we're getting 98% list to sale price. And that, especially when you're in a multiple offer situation, another thing I'll say to my client is, hey, I am staying in contact with the seller's agent. And this is where I am, I'm bringing value to you because I'm staying in contact and I'm showing that I'm important to them, and I'm fighting for the deal, and I'm trying to get as much information out of the sellers to make our offer as competitive as possible.
Anybody have experience on the escalators?
Yeah, our team uses them on a very regular basis, and we have excellent luck with them.
Okay. Karen, do you have anything specific you want to know about that?
I do, because my client called me out on the fact that it really didn't represent him well because it was showing his hand too early, and it was creating the price to go up unnecessarily.
Kelly,
So
can you walk us through how you present that and discuss that with your client?
Yeah, so the way we have that conversation is, one, we only use it if we know there's multiple offers expected on the property. And yes, I suppose you can look at it as showing your hand. But if they're competing against it anyway, then that top dollar that they put in there, they need to be willing to pay that. So whether that's showing their hand or not, that's the reality of it. And they're going to get to see any other offers below that if that clause comes into play. So
yeah, they're not bidding against themselves. They're
right.
Simply saying, hey, here's the number. I will, as you get other bids, I will beat that bid by, and it's obviously part of it. Okay. All right. Any other questions, Karen?
I did it successfully.
I think that answered it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So again, meeting the expectations, managing the expectations on the front side is super important. As you can imagine, it's no different than anything else. As the market changes and as different scenarios become more relevant or prevalent, it really is important that you all are doing exactly what you do in everything else. And that is making sure that you understand the script and the dialogue so that you properly explain it to your client in a way that really serves both you and the client, right? I mean, this is the idea. Listen, this is the way it's going to happen. Things are going multiple offers. Let's talk about the potential pitfalls, potential opportunities. What do we need to do to make sure that we're the most qualified buyer when the time comes? All the stuff that you already know, right? Pre-qual and proof of funds and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? So that's that one piece, is the managing the expectations. The other piece is the art of dealing with a client in the situation, right? That's that emotional component. It's one thing to talk about, here are the likely things to happen over the course of us trying to find a property for you, find the right property for you. It happens to be the right property for several people. This is what we're gonna, and then actually having to do it. So I know we touched on it a little bit with Kelly and Karen on the escalation clause. Are there any other nuggets of wisdom that anybody has that's been really effective in competing in a multiple offer situation?
Once you're already there, is that what you're asking? Once you're in that multiple offer deal?
Well, once you know it's going to be a multiple offer and you're having to make the offer, is there anything special that's working for you all in helping your client make the best offer structurally, price point wise, any of that?
Yeah, got it. Anybody needs to get a loan, I make sure that before we do anything, I tell them that that's a deficiency in this particular market, that you're going up against cash and cash wins. Mm-hmm. So make your offer accordingly. And I think that helps. And can I ask a question of Kelly?
Mm-hmm.
How do you structure that escalator in a percentage? Is that how you structure that?
It's a top dollar scenario, and then a dollar amount above the lowest, or a dollar amount above the highest offer, up to a certain dollar amount.
Oh, instead of a percentage. Okay. Mm-hmm. And do you do 2,500, 5,000?
It depends on what I ask the client what they want to do. So I've seen it at $500 above the next offer. I've seen it at $2,000 above the next.
Okay. Thank you.
There was a question from Joni about whether there's a piece of paper or document anyone uses, or is this just something you write up however you see fit? Does anyone use an official form?
It's not an official document. It's just a letter that's attached to it.
Okay.
I've
You know,
always,
I don't know I don't remember who said it, but somebody just said something that made me think, you know, and maybe, and this is something that for whatever reason in the resort markets, I see a lot more of than in the more traditional style markets. And it may just be a deal flow issue. It could also be a price point issue. I don't know, but like as I look at folks in the traditional markets, for whatever reason, y'all seem to be much more adept at not getting too involved in the deal. And what I mean by that is, I always felt like in the resort markets, like we were answering a lot of questions for our clients. Like, oh gosh, that price, I'm not sure about that, or might be paying too much, or I wouldn't do this. Whereas in the traditional markets, you all seem to be like, hey, listen, I'm gonna give the information, tell me what you want to do. Does that anybody else that knows both, does that speak to anybody? Because you know, when it comes down to it, like, you know, Janine, as you were just talking about, you know, the bottom line is it was your client's decision. Like, as much as we want it for them, and as much as we see the train and it's coming down, the same thing can happen, just like Rhonda was talking about, the same thing can happen the other way. Like, we think you're a total moron for pricing your property that way. Whoopsie, multiple offers over, right? You know, keep remembering that we're there to help negotiate, help do, if you will, accomplish what the client wants, not what we want.
Right. I agree.
All right. Any other words of wisdom on the multiple offer?
I have a comment or question. Can you see me or hear me?
Who is
Robert? Robert.
Is this Schilling?
Yes. How are you?
Hello,
The Godfather.
Mr. Schilling.
Yes, but I have no background right now. Hey, question for you is, you know, we have the issue of cash up here as well.
Yeah.
And if you're getting money from your bank, let's say a home equity line of credit, for instance, is that a cash offer, or are you getting a loan? Because you're not getting a mortgage, but you're not getting cash either, really. But anyway, question.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably defer. I can tell you from my point of view, the question, it can't end. That conversation can't end at that point. The conversation's got to go one step further. So it'd be more along the lines of, okay, so Robert, I understand that you're going to go and get a loan. I don't care if it's a mortgage or a line of credit or whatever. But here's the thing. Right now, we've got it set up for a closing date of March 1st. If for some reason you can't get a loan, do you have the cash to be able to buy the property? And if the answer is yes, I've got the cash, then and there's not going to be any kind of a appraisal contingent or a loan finance contingency, then it's a cash deal. It doesn't matter as long as you come to the table on March 1st with the money in the bank, whether it be through a line of credit or anything else. It doesn't really matter. It just can't be continued.
Yeah, I don't see.
So you're saying if you're unable to get a home equity line of credit, then you need to be able to come up with cash. Otherwise, you need to say you are financing this.
Yeah, if it's a cash deal and you need no financing to actually get the deal done, then it doesn't have nobody cares.
Well, here in Colorado, there's a checkbox in there in the contract that says does or does not have the funds immediately available to close. I don't see this as being any different than pulling funds out of an investment, a 401k, anything like that. There's still a process that has to take place in order to obtain those funds.
Okay.
Boy, that seems like a very different question to me Because if that check is just merely saying, oh yeah, I've got the funds, but I have to liquidate them through this process. Whereas if you're getting a home equity line of credit and, well, your bank.
I just want to be clear with everybody. Funds are liquid.
Yeah, and Robert, if you're going to establish a HELOC, I would if that's even a conversation, I'd encourage him to have that established long before you make an offer, because anytime you do a HELOC loan or a blanket loan, those critters have a 3-day right of rescission when you're dealing with taking funds out of an existing residence through that lender. And you need to be real careful because sellers, when they see that 3-day right of rescission, it'll make them apoplectic if they don't understand it.
Okay, is that muddy enough?
Hey, Todd.
Thank
Dave.
Hey, Dick.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you see me, or you can hear me at least, or?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I had one like this last year, and I think in addition to what you said, which I agree with 100%, you got to have that extra level of conversation. But there's the other thing is, your earnest money's what's going to be at risk here if you don't. So
Good point. Yeah.
in the deal that I did, I kind of went through that with the people, and he was absolutely convinced he was going to be able to get this money, and he wanted to write the deal as a cash deal to put himself in the most, the best light in terms of how his offer would look. And I think as long as people understand what they're getting into, then, you can do it. But, that guy knew, because I explained it to him, that, if he didn't have the cash and he didn't end up closing and he didn't have a loan objection contingency, there wasn't going to be much he could do about it after whatever the date was, March 15th or whatever.
Earnest money
And
is at
then
risk.
right. And he was, he made the decision. He was okay with that. He, fortunately for me and him, he got the money, and we closed,
Yeah.
and, his offer got accepted, and, because it looked probably a little better maybe than somebody else's offer. But so I just think you do have to just explain to them what their liabilities are.
Cool. All right. So the next ones, let's see, I have a client that wants to sell their or doesn't want to sell first because they're afraid they won't find a replacement property. Seller leads, net profit versus gross profit. Which would you like to tackle?
Seller leads.
Seller leads. Okay. All right. So seller leads, we're all dealing with the same thing. I don't care what markets we're in. We're all dealing with exactly the same thing. Compression in the number of listings on the market, and we're facing more competition and trying to get in front of those and get them listed. So who's made a pivot here recently to focus more on listing leads that's having some success? Who's winning? Who's generating a crap load of listing leads right now?
I'm generating a lot of listing leads, but I can't say that I'm winning.
Okay. So how are you generating them?
Mostly through Facebook or website.
Okay. And so what are you doing on Facebook or on your website that's working?
Home valuation. What is their home worth type thing?
All right. So the what's your home worth call to action ads?
Right.
Are you boosting those, or are you doing a different type of ad, or are you doing it organic?
Most of them are boosted, yes.
Okay. And so you're driving them back to your home valuation page.
Yes.
Okay. And how are you targeting those when you're doing the boost? How are you targeting those? How are you drilling down?
Well, we're doing it a couple of different ways. We do it by area versus, just narrowing it down. So we do Redlands, we do Palisade, Fruita, and target those particular areas of people as much as we can.
Are you doing zip codes then?
Yes.
Okay. So you're getting zip code, which obviously in the resort markets, you guys are going to have to figure out something a little bit probably more narrow, although maybe not, right? You know, it's interesting in the resort markets, and we're going to talk about this at the road show that's coming up here this month. You know, we're going to talk about how Alexi's going to be teaching some classes specifically on social media advertising and in the resort markets, it's a little different than the traditional markets. The traditional markets, they can focus on a very specific zip code right here, but in the resort markets, we actually have to not only focus on the folks that are there geographically, we've also got to go out and target some of the areas that that have higher density of you know, being a feeder market. So like parts of Seattle, for example, for Sun Valley, there's some, you know, very specific areas within Seattle that we have a disproportionate number of people that are coming. And so we target, add them. So that's awesome. But the call to action is home valuation, which is fantastic. That's great. And then how about the website? Same thing on the website, or?
Yes, I just started doing the website, so that's new. We're just getting started with that.
All right. Any other ways that people are generating listing leads?
Hey, Rhonda, this is Robert Yazbek. Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
On the Facebook ads, what's my home worth? Is there a way to do that to where each ad doesn't also show up in your feed or on your page? Can you do just an ad that just goes out and doesn't show up as like a post?
I think most of them are showing up in the feed, unfortunately.
Right, you might be able to hide them.
Yeah.
Until you go and you go and say hide from timeline.
If you want it.
Okay.
If you boost it, it will show up in your feed unless you hide it, Natalie. If not, you can just go
I'm not
creator.
If you boost it, you're allowed to hide it. So.
You can
and I thought when you hit it only hit it for you, not for everybody else.
I've gotten an email from Lindsay Listansky, who's our Coal Baker social media person, and there's a couple of things that she's talking about in there, from boosting to promoting, and what I'll do is I'll make sure to give those 2 links to everybody, and you can watch what she has to say about this issue. It's not going to answer all your questions. Robert, I'm not sure how to answer your question, but it'll at least give you some direction for boosting versus promoting, whatever.
Okay, and I've had a huge problem lately too, because Facebook changed. If it's related to real estate, they're like not approving my ads, even though I'm not violating fair housing, nothing. So I've been trying to boost my ads, and they keep getting declined. And so, and that's new since January 1. I don't know if anyone else has had that.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, we've run into that.
I don't know. I would love a class on like how to get around that, or what is causing that, or what we need to do, because that was a huge proponent of my advertising, and now like I can't do it. It's blocking. It's
anyone
not
knows
approving
anything
the
about
ads.
this, send it my
Natalie,
way. I'm not sure.
I'll look into that a little bit, Natalie, for our social hour that we do.
Okay, that would be great, because I'm trying to pay them, like, and I feel like Facebook is about to lose a bunch of revenue, but I've tried 4 different times now, and they have not accepted my ads, and I've checked for fair housing. It's not violating any fair housing.
No, it's not. There seems to be no rhyme or reason to it.
Right. I agree.
Did you go back and try to challenge it?
Yes.
I have. I've appealed them each time, and each time they say no. That now it's tied to housing, and that they can't discriminate. But I'm like, I'm not discriminating. I'm not. I go and review all of my criteria. None of it is fair housing criteria.
Right.
Okay. What are some other lead sources for listings? We've got 5 minutes left here, guys. Got social media. You've got your website. What are some others?
Print advertising. In a local magazine. Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, yes. That's okay. How are you using print?
Okay, so in a local print magazine, I listed, 18 properties that I just sold this last year, and I had the sold banners on them, and I said, sold these in 17, inventory is low, looking to help you sell in 18, give me a call. But it's just, showing things I've done and looking for more. So that just went out, so I'm hoping to get some feedback from that.
Right, so it hasn't gone out yet. Okay, all right. Anybody else?
No, it just went out February 1, so.
Great.
I've had pretty good luck off and on sending postcards to neighborhoods where I've shown property, or where I have buyers that are looking specific, and you talk about the actual profile of the buyer, and make it kind of personal, not just, hey, I've got buyers, but specific. And
so you're sending, you're doing a postcard, but you're saying, hey, listen, I've got this family, two little kids, but you're being more personal about what the potential buyer is.
Exactly. Yeah. Looking at your neighborhood, maybe they've missed one already or whatever, or they've got a timeline or whatever it is. And I feel like I get at least one seller, whether it turns into a listing or not, but at least a seller out of each one of those.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So I'll fire away to you, some of the ones that I'm seeing that are working. Mail drop is one. I've got people that are doing personal cards, like literally handwritten, little note cards, similar to what Robert's talking about, just not postcards. They're either a letter or a personal note card. The ones that are doing really well with that are following it up, right? Like it's not just that card. You're following it up the phone call, you're following it up with knocking on the door. The script for that is definitely important. And the script that we've been using is a Tom Ferry script, and it's just a, hey, listen, I've got these are the properties that have sold. I have some people that missed out on buying in this neighborhood that have identified it to be a neighborhood that they really want to be in. And the purpose of my call or me being here today, if I'm knocking on the door, is just to ask, do you know anybody in the neighborhood that might be considering selling? And depending on what they say, oh yes, the Johnsons, on the corner, great, I'm going to see the Johnsons. No, I don't know anybody. Well, let me ask you a question. The property values are way up. Do you know what the current value of your home is? Would you like to? Have you ever considered selling your property? And if the answer is no to that part, the follow-up is, so is this your dream home? And that's a really key piece. You've really got to test this and be good with this on scripts and dialogues. But to ask the question, so is this your dream home? It really, it elicits the sort of the reaction like, well, no, actually, it's not my dream home, but I didn't really thought of it that way. And you go, so what is your dream home? Well, I'd love this property, or love this house on a bigger piece of property. So now all of a sudden I've been engaged in a conversation about selling their home. Well, what would you have to get for this house in order for you to be able to afford your dream home if it existed? Well, I'd have to get this. Well, great. Why don't you let me take a look at your property and we'll determine whether or not it's there, because if it is, I can go find you your dream home, right? So that one's working big time. But there's no question that right now, because the competition is so fierce, you really do have to be exceptional at what you do, right? You really do need to go the extra measure of sending out the mail, following up. Cole Realty Resource is a product that people have had success in both resort markets and traditional markets. So if you're looking for a product, that would be one to look at. And then of course there's your past client sphere of influence. Like we've all seen the stats, blah, blah, blah. These people said they'd use their agent and only this percentage actually did. It's a brutal stat. We don't need to relive it. But the reality is that if you're in touch with your past clients and sphere of influence every 30 days and having some kind of relevant conversation with them, you have rapport. You're in a level of rapport with them where they really want you to win. So for you to be able to have a conversation that says something along the lines of, hey, I'm kind of struggling right now with listings. I've sold all the properties. Do you know anybody? They really will go on heightened alert for you. And it is very powerful. All right. All right, you guys, our time is up. So we gotta clip it, but thank you very much for being here. In the future, let's make sure that we all have our cameras and that we all have them on. It's a big part of this whole thing. And until next time, cheers, be distinctive, right? And remember to shoot me an email with any topics that you think are important for our next mastermind. All right.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
Bye.